Welcome everyone to the Canadian Diabetes Association 2016 webinar series. My name is Helena Macario and I'll be your host for today. We're delighted that you're able to join us today for the webinar to learn about what's new with diabetes technology and devices. And to start off, I'd just like to draw your attention to the survey at the top right-hand section of your screen. In order to better serve your needs, we kindly ask that you provide us with your input by completing this short survey towards the end of the presentation. We thank you in advance for your input. And throughout the presentation, you'll have the opportunity to type in the Q&A box located at the bottom hand right of your screen. We ask that you use this box for any questions you may have along the way, and our presenter will be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. As well, we'll be displaying a few polling questions throughout the presentation. We'd love your participation in these questions to gauge who our audience members are. And please note that your answers are completely anonymous. Also note that you're able to customize your screen to expand or collapse any of the screens you see. So feel free to adjust them as needed by dragging down the bottom right-hand corner. The presentation itself will be about 40 to 45 minutes in length with 15 minutes at the end for questions. It's important to note that it will be recorded and posted to the Canadian Diabetes Association website at a later date. And we'd like to acknowledge our two generous supporters for today's webinar, Accu-Chek and Essentia Diabetes Care, the company that brings you Contour Next products. Thank you for your support. So now I'd like to welcome our speaker, Tracy Fern, and thank you for joining us today. And before I turn it over to Tracy, I'd like to give you a brief introduction. So Tracy Fern is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes educator at the Leadership Sinai Center for Diabetes. Tracy worked in Montreal and Toronto, where she helped patients in all areas of diabetes: pediatrics, pregnancy, type 1, and type 2, including individuals who use insulin pumps to manage their diabetes. Tracy is enthusiastic about raising awareness and giving presentations on diabetes to the community, including healthcare professionals. And for more information on Tracy, please read the speaker bio section to the left of your screen. So without further ado, I present to you Tracy Fern.
Thank you, Helena, and hello, everyone. As mentioned, I am Tracy, and we will be discussing diabetes technology and devices, specifically those used for the management of type 1 diabetes, including their advantages and disadvantages. So just one poll question to start off. We'd like to ask you, how are you affected by diabetes? You can select an answer and submit it. So that's great. We have a quite variety here, and I hope this presentation will be useful to all of you. So before jumping in to speak about the different technology, it's important to understand what is technology, especially when related to diabetes. So this includes insulin delivery devices, such as syringes, pens, and pumps, blood glucose monitoring devices such as meters and continuous glucose monitoring, phone apps, and the new technology coming. So this image here shows you the milestones in the treatment of diabetes. So it shows us the progression of technology and diabetes discoveries. In the recent years, and especially nowadays, technology is rapidly changing, and many companies are releasing new products. This makes it difficult to choose the right one. Hopefully, at the end of this presentation, you will have a better idea of what is available and which form of technology may be best suited for you. Remember to discuss any questions you may have with your healthcare team, including your diabetes educators, if you have specific questions regarding a particular device. In this image, you may notice or you may have heard about islet cell transplantation or pancreas transplants. But in the interest of time, I'll be focusing on the technology devices, but I will be briefly mentioning that there are ongoing studies in these fields. So to start off with one of the first forms of technology, they are the insulin delivery devices. So once again, that would include the syringe, pen, or pump. So now I have another question for you. Which form of insulin delivery do you use? Okay, so quite a few, about 50% not applicable, and we have quite a few using insulin pumps. So I'll be going through the different kinds of technology throughout this presentation. The next part we will start with are the pens. I won't be discussing about insulin syringes since those are not as commonly used. As you can notice, pens have a sleek design and they look just like a pen does. So these have gotten much more sleek and discreet over the years. There are different pens available, and now the question may be which pen to choose. And this really depends. There are many styles and colors available. You may want to choose a pen based on whether or not the plunger pulls out, if the numbers go up by increments of 1, or if there is a dash indicated for odd numbers. It depends what the largest size dose that can be injected with the pen, the way the pen indicates whether or not there is enough insulin left in it for you to use your entire dose, and the size of the numbers of the pens, and it could also be how easy it is for you to use the pen. Sometimes you may not know about the different options. It may just be based on which insulin is prescribed for you and which pen goes along with it. So I'll briefly describe the different pens available. There are pens that are pre-filled, which means the insulin is already inside the pen. There are disposable pens, so you reuse these pens, and the insulin would be inside a cartridge. So you would put the cartridge inside the pen. Once the cartridge is empty, you just put in a new cartridge and you reuse the pen. Other pens available are called memory pens. So these may be useful for those of you who can't remember if you took your last dose of insulin or what your last dose of insulin was. So one example here is the NovoPen 5. So it shows you the time lapse since your last injection. So each segment represents 1 hour. And it also shows you the last dose that you took. Another option is the Smart Cap. So this is just like a cap of a pen. You basically remove the cap of your insulin pen and you replace it with this Smart Cap. Once you put it on the pen, it starts to count down the time since your last injection. And then when you're ready to take the injection, you remove the cap, and as long as it's removed for more than 8 seconds, once you put the cap back on, a new countdown has restarted. The other pens are half-unit pens, so these go up by half-unit increments, just as you can see here in the middle picture, so directly goes from 0 to 0.5 and so on. And these are useful for children, so the pediatric population, or even adults who require less doses of insulin, so those who are more sensitive to insulin. There are also pens which are more concentrated, and these pens are useful for people who require higher doses of insulin. So you can see one of the examples is the Humalog 200. So this means there are 200 units per milliliter. Usually typical pens are 100 units per milliliter. So you get the double the concentration, but in the same amount of volume, which means once you are taking your injection, you will get half the volume for this dose or this pen. For the other example, it's the Toujeo 300 units per milliliter. So once again, a typical pen is 100 units per milliliter. So you would get 1/3 less the volume upon injection, but you still get the same dose of insulin. So you can see this on the picture on the right, the difference in volume from using, let's say, Lantus or Toujeo. And Toujeo is the more concentrated form. And it's been shown that these more concentrated insulins help with the improvement of insulin absorption. As well, these pens contain more insulin in them. The Humalog 200 pen contains 600 units versus a typical pen which contains 300 units. And the Toujeo pen contains 450 units. And again, a typical pen is 300 units. So this is useful for people who are taking higher doses, and then they won't have to go through pens as often. With the advancement of technology, needles have gotten smaller and with thinner walls. And this improves the flow of insulin through the needle as well as the comfort upon injection. So there are different companies that make needles, and they come in different sizes. There are pens that now have a colored cap, and this is useful for people who like to use color coding in terms of using a specific color for a specific injection site. That way, when you take a certain color, you would know where to inject it if you've decided to use the yellow cap for injections on the left side of the abdomen and the purple cap for injections on the right side of the abdomen. These are just some examples. There are also safety needles. So these are the dual-ended safety needles, and the needle would be locked on both sides so that there would be no chance for a needle stick injury. Basically, after the injection, the plastic shield would automatically extend over the needle so that it's locked in place. So with these advances in technology, we've seen that when people are switching to smaller needles, there wouldn't be a need for the pinching of the skin. So 4, 5, and 6 millimeter needles can be injected safely without having to pinch. And it's also important to rotate your site. So another question for you is, what needle size are you using? So even for those of you using syringes, you can let us know which size you use. Okay, that's great. So out of the ones who are actually using needles, 17% of you are using the 4 millimeter needles. And it's good to see just 0.8% are using the 12.7 millimeters. So now we're trying to have people switch to the smaller needles. So in general, pens allow us to save time because you won't have to draw up the insulin like you would if you were using a syringe. The insulin is already inside the cartridge or inside the pen, and that's why also there's less chance for error because you would just dial the dose. You wouldn't need to draw it up as well. It is more convenient since everything is already in one device. And just like we've seen, there are more options available with the pre-filled disposable pens and those with half-unit increments. For sure, just like with any product, there are some disadvantages. Using pens are more expensive than if you were using a vial and syringe. There is some wasted insulin when you are priming the pen. And if you are using different types of insulin, you cannot mix them. So usually with a syringe, you can mix them in the syringe. So with pens, if you are using 2 different kinds, you would either need to get a pre-mixed insulin or you would have to give 2 injections. The next form of insulin delivery are insulin pumps, and these have been a great advancement in diabetes technology. They are small, portable, and computerized devices. So you set up your pump with your healthcare team and with the different settings for basal doses or the doses required with your meal. So with your bolus insulin, there is the insulin that's stored in a reservoir in the pump, and then the insulin travels through the tubing to the infusion set, and that's how it then enters your body. You can adjust the settings in your pump as well. There are different pumps available on the market, and which one you choose is a personalized choice, and it all depends on what you are looking for. If you are looking for a pump that has a CGM connected to it, are you looking for a pump that has a PDM that is linked to it? Are you looking for a pump that has a small meter connected to it? Do you want a pump that has or doesn't have tubing? So these are all things to think about if you are considering an insulin pump, and then you would discuss that with your healthcare team to see which choice would be the best for you. So we'll start looking at the different pump parts. These are more applicable for the Medtronic and Animas pumps. So for these ones, you would require a vial and a type of syringe or reservoir. So you basically need to fill up this reservoir with insulin from a vial, and you draw it up just as if you were using a syringe, and then you divide these parts. You take the reservoir and you put that into the pump. You would then have the tubing that connects to it, and the other side of the tubing connects to your infusion set. And then you would have the infusion set that's attached to you, and there are different types available. So it depends if you want a Teflon material or a metal material for your infusion sets. So with Teflon, you have straight, so that's at 90 degrees, or angled infusion sets. And the metal ones would be a steel infusion set, and they have an extra adhesive pad. So this allows for enhanced security, and that's why these types of metal infusion sets are a good choice for infants, children, and adults, and especially women during pregnancy. So these infusion sets, they come with different tubing length and needle length, and this ends up depending on your body composition, your comfort. So some people like to try different infusion sets, and depending where you will have your pump to know if you need a short or long tubing. So for Omnipod, it's a bit different because you directly insert the insulin inside the pod, and then this is the pod that would be stuck to your skin, and then the little needle or Teflon would be inserted into your skin. You can also upload your pump report. So this is just one example of a report. So with the different companies, you get the reports as well. So one of the reports that you could look at is the logbook. So this one is a bit small, but it's just to show you that just in one table, you can have your blood sugars, the carbohydrate amount that you entered into the pump, as well as the insulin dosing, if there were any alarms, and you can see the basal doses as well. So it's important to review these logbooks from time to time so that you can spot if there is any room for improvement, or if you have any questions for your healthcare team. Another example would be the pump settings page. So this is where you see all the settings in your pump. And it's important to upload your pump often so that you can have this setting page ready just in case something happens to your pump and you receive a new one, you would then have your latest settings already uploaded into your account. So this is where you see the different basal settings that you have for the different times of day, the different insulin to carb ratios, which you can also put for different times of day, your ISF, which is for your correction factor. So by using insulin pumps, it allows for increased flexibility in lifestyle and for more predictable and precise insulin delivery. It allows for tighter blood glucose control while reducing the risk of low blood glucose, so the hypoglycemia, less blood glucose variation, better management of dawn phenomenon. So sometimes people tend to have higher blood sugars in the early morning hours, so we can have a higher basal rate for that time of the morning. And you inject every 3 days versus every meal, because usually you change your infusion set every 3 days. There are disadvantages, so just like with anything that's attached or inserted through your skin, there is a risk of infection at the catheter site. There is the risk for diabetic ketoacidosis if there is a pump malfunction or absorption problems. They are costly. You still need to test your blood sugars at least 4 times a day. The pump is more visible because it is attached to you 24/7, and you need to carry extra supplies because you need to carry a backup in case something happens to your pump. You would need to have that backup with you. So the next form of technology that we will discuss are the blood glucose monitoring devices. So one of them is the self-monitoring of blood glucose. These are portable devices, so that's a glucometer or blood glucose monitor. It measures your blood glucose level with a finger stick, and it's important because your blood glucose levels change during the day and night. And testing your blood glucose, or to use the term interchangeably, blood sugar, that's the best way to confirm what your blood glucose is. So just a fun question for you. When do you think the first portable glucose meter was invented? Okay, so most of you responded 30 years ago, so it's actually 40 plus years ago, so it was 47 years ago, and those first meters were mostly used by hospitals and physicians. And then about 35 years ago, that's when the first personal blood glucose meter was used. There have been several changes over the years, so throughout these past 50 years, meters have become more accurate. They have become smaller as well as the lancets. It takes less time to get results, so the blood sugar reading. You require less blood volume, and no coding is required. So to test your blood sugars, you require a blood sugar meter, a test strip, the lancet or the needle that you put into the lancing device, and the lancing device is what you use to prick your finger. There are different meters available on the market, and the one you choose is a personal choice, and it also depends on what you are looking for. You can choose based on the size of the meter, based on how easy it is to use, if it has basic and advanced settings, how big the numbers are on the screen, how small the blood sample that would be required to get a blood sugar reading, and the data management. So once you have your meter, we will be going through some of the different ones. There are basic meters, and these are the ones where you just put in the test strip and then you get your blood sugar reading and it's stored in the meter. There are meters that have pre- and post-meal marking. So some of you, when looking at your logbook or reports, you may like to know if a certain blood sugar was before or after a meal. So with these meters, once you take your blood sugar, you would indicate if it's before or after the meal. Usually a full apple indicates before the meal, and the eaten apple indicates post-meal. There are other meters available, so these are meters that talk. It basically walks you through the steps of taking your glucose level and reads out your blood sugar reading. There are meters with a cassette. So this has a rotating cassette in it. It has 50 tests, so you won't need to carry extra test strips with you. And the lancing device is also part of the meter. And this lancing device has 6 lancets in it. So once again, this is a bit more compact. You won't need to carry extra test strips or lancets with you for the day, because then you can rechange the drum that's inside the lancing device. You can also upload the meter. So this is just one example of a logbook that you may get with one of the meters. So it would show you the blood sugars in the column based on if it's before or after a meal. You also have another kind of chart that you can have, and it shows you the percentage of the time when you are below, within, or above target. There are meters with a bolus calculator. So when you have this meter, you would set it up with your healthcare team. You can either set it up with your prefixed insulin doses, or if you use insulin to carb ratios and correction factors, you can also set that up inside this meter. Once you take your reading and it shows up on the screen, you would indicate what time of day it is, so if it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, and it would suggest a dose based on the settings that you included. And you can look at the details by clicking on the little eye, and you would see that for this example, it suggested 4 units for your breakfast and an extra 2 units because your blood sugar was elevated. So it recommended 6 units, but then you can adjust this dose as needed. And now with the newer forms of meters, there are 3 meters now that are linked to apps on your phone. One of them is the Accu-Chek Aviva Connect. So once you've taken your blood sugar reading, it's transferred to the app, and then we will go through the different options that you have with this app. To use the Bolus Insulin Advisor, so able to use these advanced settings, you need a code from your healthcare team. So your team would help you set up the meter and the app for the first time. Your blood sugar would show on your app. You would indicate if it's before, during, or after a meal. You would enter your carb amount, and with this one, you can even add a picture. It would show you how much insulin is recommended for your blood sugar, how much insulin is recommended for the carbs you entered, and then it shows it to you at the bottom, and you can also adjust that. You may notice the timing at the top. So once your blood sugar has been transferred to the app, you have 10 minutes to use the Bolus Advisor, and if not, that result will time out, and you would need to do a fresh test. The right picture shows you how your logbook would look like. So it shows you your blood sugar reading, which time of day it was, what carbs you entered, your insulin dose, as well as the picture. And if you look at the bottom, you can see that if you made any changes, the number would be crossed off and it would show what you changed it with. There are also logbooks that you get. So this is a small picture, but basically it's divided into your breakfast, lunch, dinner, and bedtime. And you can adjust these time ranges. So I'm going to discuss that with you. You notice the blood sugars are color-coded so that you can easily identify if there is a trend. And with the Bolus Insulin Advisor, when you put in your settings, you can adjust the timing. So it shows 6 a.m. In this example here, you can put it to 5 a.m. if you have breakfast earlier than 6 a.m. And then you put in the ratios for those specific times. The next one is the One Touch VarioFlex. So you can also use this meter as a basic one where you put in your test strip, you get your reading, and then an arrow would indicate if your blood sugar is below, within, or above target based on the color coding. You could connect to an app, so you would need to turn on the Bluetooth connection. And you would then have the settings pages, so you can set up the different ranges for pre and post meals. You can add in, once you've taken a blood test, you can add in your carb, your insulin, and your exercise. You can also adjust the time periods in the app. You can have up to 5 time periods. And you would also see a 30-day overview. This is just one kind of overview for you to see if your blood sugars are below, within, or above target. And then you can compare it with the previous or the next 30 days. You can see your recent blood sugars. And it also shows you the eaten or full apple. The logbook is also color-coded and divided by pre or post meals, so it can also help you identify trends. With this meter, as well as with the one I just discussed previously, you can share your results, you can text, email your results, you can email them as a PDF as well, and that can be done straight from your phone. Another meter available is the Dario meter. So this is also a small meter. You have the lancing device on one side, so that's what you use to prick your finger. On the other side, you have the test strip cartridge. So this cartridge can hold up to 25 strips. You have the meter that's right here on the left, and you would take that and plug it into the headphone socket on your smartphone. You plug in the test strip, you do the test, and then you get the blood sugar reading on your phone. You would then have the reading showing on your phone. That's where you can also enter the carbs you ate, the insulin, and if you did any activity. There are different blood glucose thresholds, so the ranges depending on pre or post meal targets. You can also set up warnings, so based on when you want to get a warning with your blood sugar, so you can set that target. There are different ways to view your blood sugars, either as a logbook, as a chart, so you can choose that on the app. And also with this one, it gives you an estimated A1C chart. It uses your blood sugars, and then it gives you an estimated A1C. Usually the A1C you get by doing a blood test, and that's your 3 months average. But at least with this, you can see if you are on track. So in general, with apps, they are portable. They have become more advanced and accurate. So now, as we've seen, there are some that are getting linked to our phones. Testing your blood sugar gives you feedback and gives your healthcare team feedback on how your medications are working, how certain foods are affecting your blood glucose, how other factors like exercise, stress, and illness are affecting your blood glucose. There are disadvantages, so there are expenses associated, and it's usually with the test strips. There is pain upon pricking when you're testing your blood sugar, or the meters that connect to a phone that would use some of your data connection, and they tend to use more battery. And people have anxiety about testing or seeing the numbers. There is also continuous glucose monitoring. So that's where you wear a small device that tracks your blood sugar throughout the day and night, and it alerts you of high and low blood sugars. So you can see on the screen the red dots are when you are testing your blood sugars, and the black line would be the CGM, so the continuous glucose monitor. And if you didn't test at that time where the blood sugar is peaking, this is a high that you would have missed. So basically, the glucose senses the blood sugar in your interstitial fluid and then sends it to your pump or to a receiver. And then on the screen, it would show the trend arrows. And that's just to show you the direction and rate of change if your blood sugars are dropping or they're going up. Medtronic has a low glucose suspend feature, so that's where it automatically suspends your insulin delivery for up to 2 hours when your blood glucose levels fall to a preset level. So this is useful in case people don't wake up if your pump usually alarms you. You can also upload your pump, so this is just showing you the different reports that you can get. And you see different lines. It could be overwhelming, but then you end up looking for trends where you can see where the blood sugars are mostly within target or mostly variable. And this is just another example of a report as well. So CGMs give you visual feedback in real time. It alarms to indicate high or low blood sugars. Less blood sugar testing is required, but you still need to test your blood sugars. Not all insurance companies cover the CGMs, and there is a difference or a lag time between the blood glucose in the tissue fluid and the blood finger testing. So the next form of technology are the apps. So here there are some facts where over 1 billion people worldwide own a smartphone, and there are over 30,000 health apps for mobile devices. 53% over the age of 50 are using or want to use health information technology, and 20% of smartphone users have at least one health app on their mobile device. So now my question to you is, do you use a health app? So we can see here it's almost an even split between those of you that do and don't. And then my next question is, what do you use your health app for? Okay, so out of you who answered, 100% of you use it for weight loss. So I'm just going to briefly go through some apps available. So there is one of them, Glucose Buddy, where you can enter your blood sugar and your insulin dose, so you can store that into an app on your phone. There is another one available, Calorie King, so you can look up the different foods available, and then you can select the one that suits you, and it shows your carbohydrate distribution and the nutrition information. Another one is the Carbs and Cals. So you basically look up a food. So if it's pasta, once you look it up, you see the different pictures on the screen, and you select the one that closely matches what's on your plate, and then you would get the nutrition information for that. The other one is MyFitnessPal, which many of you may be familiar with. So you can look up the foods, track your food and activity for a day. You set up an account, and you can also scan the barcode to scan a product, and then all that information would be stored in the app, and then you can use that as well to get your nutrition information. So with apps in general, you can track a lot of information. You can use it on the go. Many of them are free. The disadvantage is, since you're on your phone a lot more of the time, you're using more data, you're using more battery, and there are so many different databases that it's hard to tell which one is more accurate. Other technology, so there are some nutrition food scales. So you can weigh your food and then use a nutrition database, and that's how you would get your nutrition information. So now I'm sure the part that most of you have been waiting for, that's the new technology. So I know many of you may ask, when is this technology coming? But unfortunately, since these aren't officially out yet in Canada, some of them are coming soon, but we don't know when. One of them is the Freestyle Flash. So this is a small and discrete glucose monitoring system. So you basically insert a sensor with the applicator. You wear this sensor for 14 days. It is waterproof, so you can shower and swim with it and exercise. And then you basically scan it using the reader. So it's basically a meter. You scan it, and that can even be done over your clothes. And you get your blood sugar reading on the screen with an arrow. And that would indicate if your blood sugar is trending high or low. And then the graph would show you 8 hours worth of data. Another one that is available in other countries, and hopefully we would get that here in Canada, you basically have an uploader that's connected to your pump, and it transmits the information to an app on your phone, and it uploads the information to your CareLink Personal. So basically you can use your phone to see the different settings, the calibration time, the insulin that's left on board, your sensor life. So it's more discreet than you pulling out the pump to look for that information. Another one that hopefully we will also get, so this is out in other countries, it's the MiniMed 640G, so it's linked to a CGM. And basically with this one, it has the advanced protection with a SmartGuard technology, and it suspends insulin delivery if hypoglycemia is predicted to occur within the next 30 minutes. And then the system would automatically resume insulin delivery once glucose levels start to recover. So just to show you how it works, once it stops, it helps your blood sugar stay within target, so that's the yellow line. And if it didn't stop, your blood sugar could have continued to go down to below the lower limits. Another one that's currently in clinical trials is the Medtronic 670G. So this is also linked to a CGM. And this pump basically automatically increases or decreases insulin delivery to a specific target. So here it shows you 120 milligrams per deciliter on the screen, but that translates to 6.7 millimoles. So you basically set a target number into the pump, and then the pump in the background, it automatically increases or decreasing your insulin delivery, but you would still have to inform the pump when you are eating or exercising. There is the Dexcom G5. So this system is basically the sensor that either links to your receiver or to an app on your phone. So you choose which one suits your needs better. And then if it's on your phone, you can get the alerts. They can either show up directly on your screen or you can get it as a text message. Once again, these numbers are in milligrams per deciliter. Another one with Animas is the hypoglycemia hyperglycemia minimizer. So these kinds are usually called a hybrid closed loop system. Just as you can see, it's a loop between the patient wearing a CGM and a pump. The pump has an algorithm inside it. It receives the information from the CGM. It takes into consideration your blood sugars. It then does calculations to tell the pump how much to deliver to the person. The other one with Omnipod, other things that have been discussed are they're hoping to get more concentrated pods, having a mobile app, a new touchscreen Bluetooth-enabled PDM, and looking into the artificial pancreas systems like the other companies as well. Another new technology is the FlowSmart infusion set. So basically, when people wear an infusion set with a pump, sometimes there are blockages that occur, and your pump may inform you about that. But other times there are silent occlusions where you don't know about them, and your blood sugars then trend higher. Basically, with this infusion set, if there is a blockage and the insulin flows back up, there is another side port, so it's like a side door, where the insulin can flow out of. And then there is a lot more that's coming down in the pipeline, so you will see several technologies coming up here on the screen. This is just to show you a lot is still coming. Some of these haven't been officially studied yet. Some of them have, but it's just to show you the direction that technology is going. They're trying to get more meters linked to your phone, more compact meters, insulin pens that would send the insulin information to an app, and then you can use the app to do more advanced settings with your calculations. So there is a lot coming. This is just the beginning. And these are some of the resources that I've used, the different websites of the products of companies that I've used. And thank you for your time, and I'm ready for your questions.
So thank you, Tracy, for developing and delivering that great presentation on diabetes technology and devices. I think we're all really excited for the new technologies that are coming down the pipeline. And so now it's time for the question period. So yes. One of our participants asked, can you recommend a meter that would be useful for seniors?
So one of them that is good for seniors, so one of them could be the Oracle one that speaks out in case people have difficulty hearing. And then there are other meters, basically choosing a meter that's bigger, that may be easier for them to hold in their hand, and a meter that has bigger numbers. And it all depends if the person is using glasses. Some of them that I've seen even need to use a kind of magnifier to see the numbers. So it all depends on what the person is looking for, but there are different meters that have bigger numbers that show up on the screen. And a lot of the newer meters as well, their numbers are quite big on the screen so that people can easily see them.
Great, thank you for that, Tracy. And our next question is, the Talking Meter Oracle, it's a great idea for those with visual challenges. So I have a patient who uses it, but the test strips are no different than any other, so he can't see where to put the blood if he manages to do that in the space into the meter. It's the same as another meter. So why are talking meters for visually impaired why make a talking meter for visually impaired individuals but fail to make it user-friendly? Are there other options for visually impaired diabetes patients?
So that's a very good question. And yes, the Oracle is a good one because it basically says the steps out loud. But other than that, just as mentioned in the question, the meters in general, they are relatively similar. So some people that I've had that were visually impaired, we would walk them through it in our offices and show them on a test strip if it feels a bit different from one tip versus the next, so that they know where to put where to insert the test strip and which side to put the blood on it. But hopefully with this question and with all of these good comments, hopefully there will be newer meters and with better test strips for those who are visually impaired.
So thanks, Tracy. So our next question is, how is a pump managed for people who swim frequently? I am in the pool 3 times per week for an hour to an hour and a half per session.
Yes, so that's a good question. So there are basically two pumps that are waterproof. There's the Animas and the Omnipod. The thing is, some people, it all depends on your comfort. Some people don't like to wear the pump in the pool. Others are okay with it. You can also disconnect the pump for a little while. Usually we don't recommend that either. The Omnipod pump is basically like a patch that you have on you. It stays on. In terms of management, this really depends on your medical profile and your current management. So this is a better question for your healthcare team, because there are different recommendations we can make and depending if you want to keep the pump on when you swim or not, because then we would need to discuss with you how to adjust the settings in your pump and how much insulin to take before disconnecting the pump. So this becomes very personal to you, and it's better to discuss it with your healthcare team.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. We're just going to take one or two more questions, and just to let you know, if we are not able to get to your question, please email us at webinars@diabetes.ca. So the next question is, my pump infusion indicates 17 millimeters. Although the package doesn't indicate if this is the cannula length or the insertion needle length. Silhouette is inserted at an angle. For pump users, is it recommended to use the shortest cannula possible? Is one's weight a factor?
Yes, so the size of the needle or cannula depends on body composition. It depends where you are inserting the infusion set. So some people may have more body fat in certain areas. It depends if you are physically active or not. And sometimes it also depends on the comfort. So if you are not comfortable with a particular length, and you try others and you are more comfortable with the other ones, then those are the ones you can use. But it really depends on body composition and physical activity and your comfort. So you can speak with your healthcare team and perhaps try another infusion set if you're not comfortable with the one you have currently.
Okay. Thank you, Tracy. And so our next question is, why are the metal infusion sets better for women who are pregnant?
So these are the steel infusion sets versus Teflon. So basically, the Teflon ones, they tend to maybe kink or bend a bit more often. The steel ones don't usually. And because it has that extra adhesive pad that was shown on the picture, so that's like an extra security feature, so that if there is any issue, they have that extra adhesive. And we say that especially for pregnant women because we don't want the blood sugars to start going up very quickly without the women noticing.
Okay. Well, that was the last question that we're taking. And again, Tracy, thank you again for that presentation. Folks, I can see that there's a lot of questions that have been asked about financial assistance. So please do call 1-800-BANTEEN or 1-800-226-8464. Our team would be happy to help you locate financial assistance resources within Canada. And again, please note for all the questions that we're unable to answer today, please send us an email at webinars@diabetes.ca and we'll be happy to get back to you as soon as possible. So that concludes our webinar for today, and I'd sincerely like to thank Tracy for speaking on behalf of the Canadian Diabetes Association. It's been a great learning experience. And just a reminder, our webinars will be available online to everyone in the coming weeks. And again, we'd like to acknowledge our two generous supporters for today's webinar, Accu-Chek and Essentia Diabetes Care, the company that brings you Contour Next products. And thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. And just to remind everyone, if you missed a past webinar, not to worry. Our 2015 and 2016 webinars are online. You can visit us at past webinars. You can visit the past webinars at diabetes.ca/webinars. And for those who are unaware, the CDA offers many camps for youth and families of youth living with diabetes. We have 12 summer camps and 11 family camps programs to help children, youth, and families get the support they need to live well with diabetes. And for more information and to register, you can visit us at dcamps.ca. And for those of you in the BC area, we're having a free CDA Expo in Kelowna on June 18th. This event is for all people affected by diabetes. And for more information or to register, you can visit us at diabetes.ca/expo or call 1-800-BANTEEN. And again, for those of you looking for more support and resources for living well with diabetes, feel free to call us. Our toll-free line is 1-800-BANTEEN, so that's 1-800-226-8464. And thank you for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed learning with the CDA, and we look forward to your participation in the future.